Happy Friday, February 21st, and welcome to the Just Baseball Show. You got Arm Layton and I'm Peter Apple, and today is part two of the breakout candidates, but this time we're looking at 10 hitters in the National League that were broken down on justbaseball.com, and Arm and I will also bring two bonus breakout pitchers. But before we get to any of that, a reminder that the Just Baseball Show is brought to you by BetMGM. And while we wait for baseball, they have a few special offers in the NBA. Every Friday throughout the NBA season, pick a player you think will score first in the game. If it's not your player who scores first, but your player scores second, you get your money back. They also have the NBA odds boost tokens on the weekends where you'll splash extra winnings in unrestricted bonus bets. Make sure to use code JUSTBaseball to get started. But of course, gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 21 years or older. Terms and conditions apply. What's up, dude? We got our first taste of spring training, and we
Yep.
got our first taste of ABS. The umpire called a ball against Max Muncy in the first game of spring training. Catcher goes, challenges it, goes pretty quick, called a strike. Seemed pretty good. I know that you've seen it in the Fall League. You've seen it in AAA before. Kind of got me fired up.
I love it. I love it because look, there's going to be times where people are going to be annoyed by it because there's going to be a challenge, you're going to get it, and the ball is going to clip the edge of the zone by a millimeter. And look, that's going to happen. But what I think it's really good for is like the egregious calls, right? Like the 3-2 pitch that's four balls off that somehow Angel Hernandez, who's no longer there, but like rings you up, or CB Buckner rings you up, and it's like the swing there is inning over maybe with two outs versus a guy getting on base, and you can challenge it really quickly with confidence. Again, there's going to be a little bit of the gray area still, but I think it's a great way to just eliminate the very obvious game altering bad calls. And you've got to be strategic with it, right? You only get a handful a game. I don't know what they would ultimately decide on at the MLB level, but it sounds like this is something that they very much want to have and will have it. I think if they're already doing it here, they're going to have it at the MLB level as they just kind of try to tweak it and perfect it. But it becomes fun for the fans too. Like all the games I've been to, the fans get into it. Sometimes they even had like a slow clap going, like in tennis matches when it gets up on the board and the teams get into it. I think it's a fun wrinkle into it. And again, it's not going to slow the game down. It's only a handful of times a game.
And yeah, to your point, it won't slow the game down. Like in that game on the first try, it went really, really quickly. And there was a part where I'm looking at the TV, like, what is it going to be? What's it going to be? And then it's called a strike. And then immediately they go on with the at bat. So Ken Rosenthal was talking about the idea how it would translate to Major League Baseball. So right now they're trying it in 19 of the 30 spring training stadiums. And the idea is each team has two challenges per game on balls and strikes. Has to be called by the player on the field, right? It can't be a manager challenging it like the other challenge system. It has to be the catcher, the pitcher, or the batter, and it has to be instant, right? If you're right, you keep the challenge. If you lose it, you lose the challenge. It's kind of similar to when a manager is challenging, a call on the field, whether that be a stolen base, out at home, whatever that is. You lose it, you lose the challenge. You win it, you retain the challenge. One thing that I am worried about when it comes to the ABS system is the loss of framing with catchers, right? We talk about Patrick Bailey and how he can impact the game in so many ways without hitting at all, right? Defensively. A lot of these catchers have made a career out of being incredible defensive catchers. And as the game has progressed, framing has become more and more important to these teams. But with ABS, that kind of gets taken out. So what's going to happen to the catcher position?
Well, I think it's the perfect happy medium because it's like there's still an importance to framing, right? You get 200 or however many pitches you're going to have in a game, 150, I don't know. And a few of them, yeah, will be overturned or changed or whatever. But if you're Pat Bailey and you're stealing borderline strikes all day long, the team's not going to know when to deploy their challenge. And
Mm.
there's a big strategy to it as well, right? Do you save them for the ninth inning? Do you use them early when you feel really confident? But if you're duping the umpire several times, like players have to be really sure. So you could get them to burn you know, their challenges essentially. I do. It does make it probably 3% less important, but it still is important. So That's why I think this is the perfect balance because I'm with you. Like, I don't want to see the art of receiving and framing and, just go to the wayside, especially because there's so many players who have built careers off of it. But at the same time, if we can eliminate some of those, like, holy crap, that was a foot outside of the zone. How did you ring him up on that? I think this is the perfect middle ground for it.
That is the perfect middle ground. I'm glad you broke it down like that because that was a general fear for
Yeah.
me. I was like, what is going to happen to the catching position? And it's my classic brain just over exaggerating everything. Like it will be 3% probably different. It's two a game, and like you
Yeah.
might lose it. And then if you are a batter at the plate, to your point, like Patrick Bailey is sticking that shit. You gonna
Yeah.
challenge? I want to see
Yeah.
who challenges Patrick Bailey first.
Yeah. And like, and also it's the fact that like, if Patrick Bailey is duping an umpire like 12 times in a game, like honestly, we need to challenge some of those. Like it's getting a little egregious. So it's a cool balance there. But yeah, I mean, like you got to really trust your eyes and where the ball's crossing the plate. But I'll tell you what, I saw plenty of times through AAA games that I was at, Arizona Fall Leagues games that I was at, that guys were very positive that it did not clip the bottom of the zone, and it did. So you're going to see guys miss on that a lot still too. And again, that brings a fun element to it as well.
I wish Joey Votto was still playing. He would. I don't think he'd ever lose a
I
challenge.
don't think he'd ever miss. No, I was. It makes sense that Max Muncy was one of the first guys
Yeah.
to nail it here in spring training.
That's going to be a stat at the end of the year where we say who really
Oh
has the
yeah,
best eye in the game.
and because some teams like only the catcher, like they'll only let their catcher challenge it. They don't even want hitters to mess with it. Like every team's gonna have a different strategy. Which I think like people were complaining about how the DH took some strategic element out of the game and things like that. Well, I think this does actually put a strategic element back into the game. So I mean I know people technology get upset about it, but like this is a good balance where you still have the umpire, but you have just a checks and balances that can just at least at, get rid of the game altering atrocious calls that just piss everybody off. Nobody wins on those.
The last thing I want to ask you before we wrap this up, we're seeing it in spring training, and it already went pretty well. When do you think it actually gets put into Major League Baseball? Because this is not going to happen this year. Do you think it could happen as soon as next year?
I think after the next CBA, right? So after 26, it's going to be
Mm.
one of those things that like they're going to be fighting over all of these different things, and then we're going to have like the little positive news sprinkled in. Oh, they agreed on this. It's like, oh, great. But are we going to have a season? I think that's probably when we'll see it, and I think that's what they're gearing it up for. It still needs to be calibrated a little bit better. I think they're still trying to figure out the bottom and the top of the zone and things like that, and how it adjusts to each hitter. And I think they need probably another year or two of that, but it's getting close. So I think it times up really well with the new CBA.
I can't wait. I'm getting more fired up the more I watch it. All right, you ready for the breakout candidates?
Hell yeah.
So again, you can find all of these different articles. So there's 10 articles on justbaseball.com, one per player. And then Jay Staff kind of put them all in one document so you can search them all on justbaseball.com. And another reminder to everybody listening, if maybe you didn't catch part one, is these aren't necessarily picks that Aram and I chose. These are from the website. So I'm going to give a positive about each player and a negative about each player. Throw it over to Aram to see whether he's buying more of the positive or more of the negative, and then can fill in the cracks about each player. But in the pitching section at the end, those are two guys that Aram and I both chose. So if you're hearing this and you're like, why is my favorite breakout player not on this list? You're probably right, right? We're just going over the 10 from the website, and there will be plenty of more conversation surrounding breakout guys, as the season unfolds. All right. So the first one, and it's a pretty obvious one, James Wood of the Washington Nationals. You can find an article written by Matt Carroll, again on justbaseball.com. All right. The positives are pretty easy. Hits the living shit out of the baseball. 52% hard hit rate. That was the same as Rafael Devers last season. He's also got speed. He struck out at a decently high clip, but he doesn't really chase outside the zone. This is just a manimal of a man at the plate who just, again, crushes baseballs. The negative is he had a 55% ground ball rate last year. That was the only negative I could find.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, and it's almost can like be spun into a positive where it's like
Yeah.
he hits the ball so hard and he's just scraping the surface of I think what he's going to be able to do from a power perspective, and cut that ground ball rate down a little bit as the season progressed for him at the big league level. But we've seen like guys that hit the ball really, really hard can get away with a 50% ground ball rate. You maybe don't want 55, but with his speed and how hard he hits the ball, it wouldn't be too much of an issue for him. I think it would just be the difference between whether he hits his ceiling or somewhere slightly below that. It's really hard to say, like, to find a reason why he can't be successful. Because, like you said, yeah, he struck out a little bit, and he did. I mean, it was a 29% K rate, but like for a 6'7" rookie
Yeah.
power hitter, it's
At
really not that
22?
bad.
At 22 years old, too.
Yeah. Like he was 21, I think, when he got up there.
Yeah.
He's going to be 22 until September 17th.
Yeah.
It's really hard to find a reason why he won't succeed, to be honest. I think that from a WAR perspective, the defense just not quite as good as we were hoping. Honestly, I think he was more comfortable in center than a corner. The reads are tougher in a corner sometimes when you're not used to it. And I know it's something that actually Aaron Boone was talking about with Jason Dominguez. And, like people were like, oh, it looks so bad out there in the corners. Like, yeah, because he was playing center. He'll get his reads. He'll get more comfortable. I think it's the same story with Wood. But if the defense isn't great, like from a WAR perspective, he might not show up in all of the fan queries that you're looking at when you're on Fangraphs. But the chase rate being so low makes me very comfortable that he's going to be quite good. And yeah, I think he's got to be one of the biggest layup breakout guys.
So the ceiling is clearly enormous. I
Yeah.
mean, this could be a guy who's hitting 40 plus bombs, like kind of like Vladimir Guerrero Jr., like leading the league and outs above 95 miles an hour, like one of those type of guys who is just pillaging baseballs. So Fangraphs has a bunch of projections for him. And I want to throw some of those numbers at you, and you tell me over or under. Kind of what level of the ceiling is he reaching this year? Because I don't think he's going to fully get there. Clearly, he's only 22 years old, even though, of course, he could, but I don't know, right? So projections have him anywhere from, we'll go with the high one, 22 home runs. Over or under?
Over for sure, I think. Yeah, the ground ball rate again will be the challenge, but he hit 9 in 79 games at the big league level last year. I think he's going to settle in and get over there.
What about like a 260 batting average?
Ugh, that's tough. That's pretty spot on. I'll go slight over. I'll go slight over.
And what about the strikeout rate? 27%? High.
That's hard too. I- What do you think on the strikeout rate?
Probably going to be there. But the thing is, the walk rate's going to be 11% too. So
That's
he's
the thing too.
hedging
He's going
some
to
of that.
offset it. It's not going to be a problem. But
No.
if you sort by his like after he got his feet wet a little bit, like final 50 games of the big league season, he had a 26% K rate. I'll I'll go under. I'll go under. The contact rates are solid, and in that span, his chase rate dropped below 20%. I'll go under on the K rate.
So the slash line has him like 260, 350, 460 with 22 home runs.
Which it should be noted, like these projection systems, you can speak to this, especially
Oh, yeah.
when you're looking at betting stuff as well, are always notoriously conservative, right?
Absolutely.
Those are
Absolutely.
pretty nasty
Yeah.
projections for a 22-year-old.
I mean, to get to like 125 WRC plus, like some really good players are less than that, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, they are conservative and they're still pretty damn high. And also the 19 stolen bases. You like that over too? So,
Ooh,
could this guy be like a 25-20 guy with a 120 WRC plus next year pretty easily? And
I
like
think
that's a
pretty
really good player.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's he's a star in the making. And I mean he had games this past season where he grabbed 3 bags, in a single game. So I think he could easily do that as well. Like he's pretty much one of those guys where he's not going to accelerate as off the charts as some other dudes because he's so big, but if a guy's a certain time to home plate, he's going to take that bag, and he did that. So I think he'll easily get to 20 bags.
Get excited, Nationals fans. All right, next up, Francisco Alvarez, catcher for the New York Mets. We got an article written by Leo Morgenstern. All right, so the positive. I think a positive for Francisco Alvarez is that the glove is better than it was anticipated. I
Yep.
remember reading a write-up from you when he was a prospect, and it was like, he's gonna hit. But the glove, right? it could be average, but it might be slightly below. But it was above average last
Yeah.
year, and he was near the top in framing metrics, in pop time, and we know when we watch Francisco Alvarez, he can get into big time power. Right, he popped a 114-mile-an-hour exit velo in both 2023 and 2024. Now the negative, swinging and missing,
Yeah.
kind of a lot. Chasing outside the zone, kind of a lot. Ground ball rate, elevated. And what I've noticed from Francisco Alvarez can be very streaky.
Oh yeah.
So do you think that kind of for the rest of his career, or let's just talk 2025. For 2025, do you think he's going to put out a decent output? Like he's going to have a 740 OPS, but there's going to be months where it's 560 and months where it's 900, and then it's all kind of come together? Or do you think he can be more consistent if he's making better swing decisions? And do you think he's going to be able to do that?
I think so. Like the thing that's interesting is he got picked apart by sliders last year, right? Like and he got spun a ton. Like if you go by individual pitch type, which would be separating four seamers and two seamers, he saw no pitch more than slider. It was 25% slider, 24% four seamer, and then 18% sinker. Obviously, if you conflate the two fastballs, you're seeing more fastballs, but that's still a large amount. And it makes sense because he had a 500 OPS against sliders. So that's definitely a problem. But what he did do is cut down on the chase and continued to lay off the sliders more and more and kind of forced pitchers to either locate that pitch or get back into the count with the fastball or get ahead with the fastball. So I think there was also that, and we've talked about on the show a few times, like the Eric Chavez situation where he's like trying to get him to be like more of a contact guy and whatever. Like, I don't care if Francisco Alvarez hits 220. Like we talk about how Cal Raleigh is one of the best catchers in Major League Baseball. You can make the case that he's the best catcher, coming off of last season. No one gives a shit about his batting average. If he runs into homers and he walks and he defends well, he's going to be one of the best catchers in the game. So I'm very interested to see what kind of hitter he tries to be. But I thought him trying to be the well-rounded contact guy just hurt him because he's going to whiff regardless. I'd rather see him let it eat. You mentioned it. He hit a ball 114. He's got that in the tank. I think he's hit balls harder than that in the minor leagues. In the big leagues, his 90th percentile exit velocity was 107 this past season as a 22-year-old. Like big league average is 103 and change. Like let this guy get his swings off and let's see him run into 25, 30 home runs. And if he hits 230, he hits 230. But it's really hard to figure out because I don't know what kind of hitter he's going to try to be.
I guess I'm cooling a little bit on breakout, right? Because Jack and I were comparing breakouts to ice cream flavors. And we both agreed that a Nolan Shanwell breakout would be like vanilla ice cream.
Yes.
You like vanilla ice cream. I like vanilla ice cream, but it's not peanut butter half baked, right? It's not mint chocolate chip, right? Like a Wyatt Langford. I'm leaning towards vanilla ice cream for Francisco Alvarez because I think the streakiness is going to continue to be there because there still is a lot of swing and miss. He's going to hit for power and he's going to have those months of a 900 to 1,000 OPS. But I think there will be peaks and valleys, and I think he is going to continue to be valuable due to the glove.
Yeah.
But when I look at projections, I'm looking at 20 home runs-ish with the low-end 97 WRC plus, high-end 111. I think he's probably gonna be around there.
Yeah.
And is that a breakout?
No. For him, it would be like, and I can see why he's a breakout candidate just because the offensive ability is so
Yes, he's got the
tantalizing.
Tool. Yes,
right? And like he could hit 30 plus, and then he's a star. But I agree with you. I just think the volatility is going to result in him kind of settling somewhere in the middle. But he's so different, as you mentioned off the top of this segment here, is like he's so different than the prospect we thought he would be. Where I thought he's gonna have to be that high end outcome bat wise to be able to carry an everyday role there. But he's turned into a guy that you can really trust the defense is going to be solid. So even if he was a 97 WRC plus guy, he'd comfortably be a quality everyday catcher. So that's the good news here. But I think at the big league level now too, there's just so much more importance for him, just to be that catcher and be a solid backstop that it does take a little bit away from, just trying to be that slugger as well and focusing on that side of things. So it's a tough balance for a 23-year-old. He's 22 for the entirety of last year. So I don't think he's going to be this, explosive breakout guy. It could happen very easily. But I do agree that it's going to be volatile and he'll settle, I think, slightly above average offensively. And with the defense, that'll still put him borderline top 10 catcher in the game.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to another guy in the National League East, Dylan Cruz, outfielder for the Washington Nationals. You can find an article written by Jay Staff on justbaseball.com. And the more I was looking into this guy, Aram, I mean, kind of similar to James Wood, where I'm like fishing for negatives. Just
Yeah.
a really well-rounded player. Can hit for average, makes good swing decisions, can hit for power, popped a 113 in the minors. 113 exit velo, by the way. Plenty of speed. He's a good defender. Or my negative is that he puts the ball on the ground too much, just
Yep.
like any other young player, right? I
Yep.
mean, I guess my thing with Dylan Cruz is I think he's going to be very, very solid next year. And that's just point blank. Like, I don't even know how we really analyze that right now, or I'm sure I could throw it over to you. But my question is more like, what's his high end? Like, what's that? Is Dylan Cruz ever going to win an MVP? I
I
feel like
think
he's
that's,
yeah, go ahead.
oh, I was going to say, I think that is the, like, it's one of those classic situations where a guy was so ahead of his years at every stop that you keep dreaming on this like exorbitant ceiling, and it almost becomes unfair to the player because he's 5'11", 200. He hits the ball hard, but he's a guy that I think hits a lot of line drives, which results in some balls on the ground. He's fast and he's an asset in center field. Those aren't usually the archetypes that win MVPs. Those are the
Yeah.
archetypes that have a really good and long and successful career. So I think you're touching on the right topic there, which is like, what would an MVP season look like from Dylan Cruz? Like,
Yeah.
he's not hitting 40.
No. And he's not stealing 40, I don't think.
He might turn that into his game a little bit. I don't know. He started stealing way more bags than I thought when he got up. But like even then, okay, you can't steal your way to an MVP unless like Ronald Acuna didn't win it because of the bags.
Yeah.
Like it was the power on top of that.
He hit 340 with 41 bombs, like that, and
Yeah.
then also stole 73 bases.
Yeah. I think the challenge too with a guy like Cruz is the way he would probably win an MVP is by hitting it for a super high average and getting on base at a ridiculous clip. And while I think he's going to get on base at a decent clip as he gets more comfortable and hit for a decent average, he still struggles mightily against sliders, like especially at the big league level. He hit around 100 against sliders, and I mean it was rough. And he saw more and more of them. The pitchers spun him 30% at the time. So like that's going to restrict you from being able to hit for a higher average. He pulverizes fastballs, like absolutely crushes them. But I just don't know if the ability to hit breaking balls is going to be there enough to hit for that high average to be a full-fledged breakout. But it's similar to the conversation about Francisco Alvarez, where the defense and center is going to be good. He's going to do other things that complement his game enough to where I feel very confident that he's going to be a 3-win player and have a really nice season. But what does a breakout look like for him? It would probably have to be 20 to 25 bombs. He's got the raw power to do it, but that would be a big leap.
Because I'm looking at projections right here, and it's really like 15 home runs, 25 stolen bases, hitting like 245, and not even slugging 400 for a WRC plus below 100. Now,
Wow.
projections are conservative, but that's pretty low.
Yeah.
So I guess
Yeah.
my thinking is like, how does it come together this season? To your point, you're saying a breakout would probably be he's outdoing that power projection, right? Because he's only hitting 15 home runs by the projections, only slugging about 400. So if he's slugging 450 with 20 plus home runs and those stolen bases are there, like he could be a 20-30 guy. He could kind of
Yeah.
put up similar numbers to what Bobby Witt Jr. kind of did in that rookie season.
Yeah.
I think if I remember correctly, it was like 20
Yeah.
bombs, 39 stolen bases, something like that. I think that's then the breakout, but the projections are saying hold your horses.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they're right. It just means that
Well,
they're yeah.
Here's the interesting thing. How much better is he going to hit fastballs next year or this coming season? How much better is he going to hit against fastballs than 327, 403, 545? Probably not that much better. That said, it is indicative of the fact that he can freaking hit. But where he's going to have his gains is going to be against breaking balls, which, what I'm looking at right now, he hit 100, 120, 100 against. So like that was the full slash line. That's where he's going to make his gains, right? Like, but to your point, he has 20, if he hits 20 home runs, which he undoubtedly has the raw power to do, steals 30 plus bags, and you know he's going to play above average defense in center, I would qualify that as a breakout. So I
Yeah, I
guess
would
the
too.
way he would do it is reaching to that 20 plus home runs and then doing everything else that we think he can do. But again, I think the breaking ball thing is definitely a major issue for him right now. He can still be a successful big leaguer by crushing fastballs and mistakes, but to be that Dylan Cruz player we think he can be, he's got to figure out the spin. He has done it. Like it took time. He was getting beat up by like sliders in the minor leagues, and then slowly got himself comfortable against those. He's got to do the same thing again now at the big league level and recalibrate. So far, he's been able to do it. So can't count him out.
All right, so we've covered three guys so far on the top 10 breakout hitters. Then, of course, we're going to get to the pitchers. But before that, our first break. Next up on the list, P. Crow Armstrong, center fielder for the Chicago Cubs. You can find an article written by Ryan Herrera. Positive. Some of the best overall defense in the league, not just in center field. I mean, go look at the red on Baseball Savant, and then also just go watch him play out there. The eye test matches the numbers. And he improved offensively. This is from, again, that article with the leg kick in the second half. The numbers did look better, but what I also kind of noticed is it was really highlighted by one great month. And then he kind of went back down to an OPS below 700. So my negative is, and the reason that I'm still slightly pumping the brakes on a major breakout, because I know you and Jack are both really bullish on Pete Crow Armstrong. And for good reason, right? Such a high floor with how good he is defensively, and he has flashed that month where he was near 1,000 OPS and hitting over 300, and it looked awesome. But again, if we're talking about a general struggle against breaking balls, he's
Oh,
got it.
oh
He
yeah.
was last year he was chasing at an alarming rate,
Oh yeah.
41% chase rate.
Mhm.
So I guess my question to you is 2025 Pete Crow Armstrong, what type of hitter is he? Because that I think will constitute the breakout because nobody's saying, oh, he's going to play really good defense. Wow, break it out. We already know that. What does the bat look like?
I think you're hoping that the power shines through even more because I don't think he's going to hit enough to carry his offensive profile. You know he ain't going to walk, so
Yeah.
he elevates really well, and that's something that is an advanced aspect of his game. And also, I also think contributes to some of the whiff. And he's just not going to change who he is as a hitter at this point. So it's probably hitting 25 home runs, which I do think he can do. And it's something that we've seen stretches where the power shines through. But I'm with you, like ultimately, I think he's going to be a really volatile hitter that's going to have those months where he's hitting everything in the air and hitting it hard, and you're seeing home runs and triples and doubles, and he just can't get out. But then you're going to see stretches where he's getting himself out left and right. And a 50% chase rate against sliders is a major problem. Like it's a major problem. He cut that down as the season progressed, which was nice to see. But that's how bad it was out of the gate. 41% overall chase rate is I mean, that's as high as anybody in Major League Baseball. Those things can't happen, especially when you are, posting below average contact rates. So he's going to really have to get every drop out of the quality of contact. And he's shown the ability to do that 10 homers, six triples, and another 13 doubles. And again, that month was outrageous. But with those underlying numbers and that chase rate, there's going to be a lot of getting himself out. So he's got to cut. And I know that the Cubs are in his ear saying, you got to cut that down. But at the same time, some guys, it's not just a decision of, oh, I want to swing less. It's just the way that they hit. They don't know how to get out of swing mode. And I am a little worried that that might be the case with PCA. That said, I still love him as a breakout just because, again, the floor is so high and the ability to elevate. If he hits 25 homers, the OBP could be low and it could still look like, the Mike Harris rookie season, which I still think would constitute a breakout for PCA because that was a really impressive season.
So the projections on Fangraphs, and again, these are conservative. I'm just kind of using them for bouncing off points between Arm and I. 16 home runs is the high projection. The low
Wow.
is 13. Now the stolen bases are, in the high 20s, low 30s, but the high projection for him is a 100 WRC plus. The low is an 89.
Wow.
So it's like if he hits 17 home runs, steals 30 bases, and puts up like a 97 WRC plus. It's not really a breakout.
No, no. He'd have to hit 25. And I think he can. I think the home run side is pretty conservative because he's gonna get his. Like the ability to hit the ball to the pull side in the air is there. Bags wise too, I think he's getting 40. I
Mm.
really do. But he might get on base at a 285 clip. Like that's the problem. And so if he's getting on base, like, is there any scenario in your eyes where if he's getting on base below a 310 clip that he could still technically break out? If it's 25 home runs and 40 bags,
Oh,
but he
yeah.
has a 295 OBP.
To be perfectly honest, I don't give a fuck about his OBP if he's 25 and 40 playing that defense. Like
Okay.
everyone has their kind of deficiency. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Uh,
No player's perfect. But if I mean, how old is PCA? Like he's 22.
22.
If he puts up 25 home runs and 40 stolen bases while playing elite defense, it puts up like a 4-win season. That's absolutely a breakout. I just like
I know
20
that's crazy, but like
crazy.
I just that is something that I think he like if you told me, oh well, what if he gets on base at a 340 clip? I'd be like, well, I can't even dream on that. I can dream on 25. I do feel like I could dream on 25. Maybe not this year, but even 20. If it's 20, 30 plus, and great defense, and you're just praying he gets on base. That part stinks. Obviously, you can't steal first, but we still saw with the OBP challenges last year, he still stole a shit ton of bags because he never gets thrown out. And that's the interesting balance here is like he may not get on base as much as anybody else as other guys, but when he gets on base, he's almost guaranteed to get on second base, and then he's guaranteed to score on a single. So it is interesting when you like kind of weigh the value proposition there, but it can't. I don't think it's going to be worse from a Chase perspective, and I think
Can't get
there's a
any
lot
worse.
of valuable
It can't get any
feedback.
worse.
It can't. It
Yeah,
literally
yeah,
can't.
yeah.
He had a good month. He had bad months. I think there's good feedback, and I'm interested to see what it ultimately looks like. I do think the drag bunt is going to be more of a part of his game too, and like he steal hits that way. But yeah, it's tough to project a breakout when he's probably going to get on base around a 290, 310 clip. But I think it looks like 20 to 25 home runs and 40 bags, and like that's a breakout. So I still
Absolutely,
think he
that's a
can do it.
breakout. And it's so funny. I can't wait for the like in June or July because he's going to have up and down months, kind
Oh,
of
he's going to
similar
have
to a
some bad ones, I'm sure.
Francisco Alvarez. So I can't wait for like, hey Peter, remember when I said 20, 25 home runs? He's got 9 home runs this month. And the next month we're talking, I'm like, Aram, he didn't hit one this month. Like it's
He's
gonna be one
chasing
of those.
80% of the time. Like,
No, but he's such a fun player to watch. This is one of the guys on the list that I'm hoping the most for.
oh my gosh, yeah. Did you see his
Because
hair, by the way?
yeah, he's crazy. He's awesome.
He's
He's,
crazy.
he's crazy. But he's
Which
sick
is
though. I'm
what
I'm here for it.
yeah, I love it.
But
You need a psycho in the clubhouse, and he plays center field like a psycho as well. He's must see TV, and I think he's in a great spot too. I think where if he's playing even at that level, it's great for baseball because he's as marketable as can be. He's just
but
got to
he
stick.
it needs to be controlled chaos
Yeah.
because there was some times where I was watching Cubs games last year where he would just like make the dumbest decisions in
Yeah,
center field.
yeah,
Like
trying to
that's
be a
his
hero.
position. Like I remember I was watching a game and like he chucked a ball and into home plate to try and nab a runner at home, and the runner was like already definitely there, and it let a guy go over to second
Yep.
base like easy. Like it's just like that's a little league play,
Yeah.
Pete. But then he flashes like the catch probabilities on Statcast. He'll get one of those 2% balls and standing up, and you're like, holy shit. So
He
there's
looks
a
like
lot
he's
of that.
willing to die out there
Yeah,
to make the grab. Like it's scary sometimes,
he's
but
a
that's
he's a
why
fun
Cubs fans
player.
love him.
So here's another guy. I said that last time. It was I'm getting in my Chris Collinsworth era. Here's another guy.
Here's another guy.
Matt McLain, written by our guy Clay Snowden. Another guy that like it's hard to find a lot of negatives because he was above average with the bat and the glove. Right? It's kind of like Dylan Cruz in a way. Could easily be a 2020 guy if he stays healthy. And that's only the thing that we have to worry about with Matt McLain because he missed all of last year with an injury. But I'm not going to bring you, hey, the negative arm. Do you think he's going to
Yeah,
get hurt? No,
yeah.
that's not what I'm trying to ask here. What I am trying to ask here is that there is again a lot of swing and miss. Like in 2023, the one negative was he struck out at a 28.5% rate, right? If you got Ellie De La Cruz striking out a lot, you got Matt McLain striking out a lot, like the middle of your lineup is going to go through some peaks and valleys
Mm-hmm.
with these two kind of at the top. Do you think there's too much? And again, we're a season removed. Like we haven't even seen him since 2023. So this question is going to be really tough to answer. But do you think there's too much swing and miss in his game to truly break out, like be a 30-30 guy or like legitimately be one of the better infielders?
It's hard because it's another case, and it just shows you like the levels of this stuff. Like young guys seeing big league breaking balls, it's really tough. And in 23, it was a little bit of the same story where he came out hot and was doing a lot of good things. He still finished productive and strong, but the K rate didn't go down as he compiled more ABs. It actually went up as he compiled more ABs. And over the final 30 games of the 2023 season, he struck out 32% of the time because he started to see more and more and more sliders. And I think the scouting report comes out and pitchers start to execute a little bit more and kind of know what your weaknesses are. At the same time, McLain's ability to drive the ball hard in the air in that ballpark makes me feel like he can tap into it. And he also is patient, overall. He ran a chase rate like around 24%. I think that's going to get better and better. So when you got above average exit velocities consistently in the air in that ballpark, he what would a breakout look like is essentially my question. Like if you
That's my
prorated
thing.
his numbers
That's my thing.
to a full season, we would have to count that as a breakout, right?
Yeah, I mean, he was 16 home runs, 14 stolen bases in 89 games in 2023. Like, if you prorate that out, like, we're
That's
looking at
damn
a
near
30-30
30.
guy.
Yeah, like that. So we're essentially a breakout for Matt McLain is off of shoulder surgery. Can he do what he was doing over the course of 162? Is kind of the question.
I think that's a really tough ask for him, right?
I think it's a very tough ask because he was standing on his head.
If we're looking
Uh,
at projections, like it's like 21 home runs, 18 stolen bases with a 115 WRC plus and a 3.5 win season. Sounds pretty damn good to me. Do you think he goes much higher than that? I don't know. Coming off an injury, right? 2026, I could see him doing much better than that. But coming off an injury, like we're talking about breakout guys for 2025. Like, is
yeah,
Matt McLain better than the projections? I'm not so sure. I think he is just that, which is a good player, right? Three and a
yeah.
half win player, 2020 guy in the infield. We'll take that all day.
One,
But
I think the defense is going to be amazing wherever they stick him.
mm,
Like at short, it's good. I think they put him at third. It's fantastic. If they put him at second, it's fantastic.
that
I
could
don't know about
elevate the
center,
war. That could
but
elevate the war. He could be a 4 win player, and then we're like, all right, this is a really
that's
good
the
player.
thing.
So that's I think where the breakout comes. If he could be 2020 while playing elite defense,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a breakout.
I think if they stick him at third, and I don't know, maybe there's something with I can't keep up with every single spring training reporting here, so I could see the Red Sox go, oh well, they already said that. Please let me know if I missed that. But like, if he's playing third, that left side of the infield range with him and Ellie will be outrageous, and he'll accumulate WAR.
Mm.
Um, but he was shaking off the rust in the fall league, so I don't want to like put too much weight into it. Like he hadn't played and he's coming directly off the injury. But he had a couple 4 strikeout games in the fall league. Like there was definitely some swing and miss. He was productive, but he struck out 21 times in 59 plate appearances. So like there might just be also the rust being shaken off. It's nice that he had the offseason, he has spring training, but getting thrown back into the big leagues, man. So it'll be tough. But I do think he can very easily get to 4 WAR just off of the defense. And like you said, going 2020. And I do think he's going to slug. Like he's going to get his in that ballpark. The guys that hit the ball in the air, like they see as big of a bump in that ballpark as anybody. And I think that's what he's going to, at the very least, be able to enjoy. He's going to crush lefties.
Yeah. I can't wait. Like he's a guy who I'm really excited about because it's like if those numbers are prorated, let's say he's come back's fully healthy and he's able to be a 30-30 guy with great defense. Like the ceiling, we could see it.
He's an all-star.
My only concern is coming off an injury, like can
Yeah.
you get to that? But if he can, oh shit.
What does that mean for the Reds too? Like
Yeah.
he's as big of an X factor, I think, is we're talking about all these different guys, but in terms of like X factor for their team and a team that could go from middling to playoff contention, like I think McLain of all the names we're going to talk about is right there.
Another one that rivals McLain in terms of X factors, Jung Hoo Lee,
Oh yeah.
center fielder for the San Francisco Giants. Like he barely played last year due to an injury, but if he taps into his potential,
Oh yeah.
they got another big time piece in a very important position of need. So the positives, good defender with a cannon.
Yeah.
A cannon. Like you wouldn't expect it because he doesn't have a big frame, but watch this guy throw from center field. It is a rifle out there, and he's got plenty of speed. He's going to be a good defender in center field. And he's likely going to be at the top of like the zone contact
Yep.
rates, doesn't strike out ever, right? In his first little cup of coffee in Major League Baseball, and he struck out 8% of the time when coming over. That is fantastic. Here's the negatives, and here's what might dampen the word breakout when it comes to Jung Hoo Lee. Do we have any power here? Any. Because he's also playing in a black hole of a stadium.
Yeah.
The slug dropped from 575 to 455 from 2022 to 2023 in Korea.
Hmm.
And then he comes over and has almost no impact with the bat. So, what would lead to a breakout with Jung Hoo Lee? Because we know he's going to be able to accumulate WAR in the outfield. We know he's not going to strike out. But is it a lot of ground balls that we're hoping gets through an infielder?
I I think it's finding the gaps. Like he hits the ball hard enough where I do think he could be a doubles machine and sneak some balls out to the pull side. Like it's a small sample. We only had 36 games, but I thought the issue was more the angle at which he was hitting the ball than the actual exit velocities. And, you know, the 90th percentile was 104. He was flashing some, I think, higher end impact than people were expecting. You know, there's a 108-mile-an-hour line out I'm looking at. You know, there's and again, if he's just getting into that, like if he's producing 108s, he's fine with those contact rates. You mentioned it, like he's going to be in the top with just about anybody in terms of the in zone contact. But the problem is his average launch angle on hard hit balls was south of 9%. So when he's getting his best swing off, it's usually being hit into the ground or a low line drive. So how does he tap into more impact? It's probably specifically elevating fastballs. So that's what we're going to have to wait and see. I think the floor with him is so high for all the reasons that you just laid out. But ultimately, I think it's going to be being that doubles and triples machine, right? Like finding those gaps in that outfield and where Karam's off the wall and he's running and running and running. I do want to call my shot on a Jung Hoo Lee inside the park home run this coming season. I've already seen it, but I think it's going to be via doubles and triples ultimately, and I think he's got the enough impact to split the gaps.
Can he steal a base for the love of God?
Yeah,
I mean,
isn't
he's
that
got
weird?
so much speed. He sold two last year. Granted, it was only in 37 games. But you're looking back at his time in the KBO, like in 2022 when he lit the world on fire and won the MVP in the KBO. He hit 23 jacks. He hit 350, put up a 174 WRC plus. He stole five bases. And when
It's
you look at
weird.
his projections, like Zips has him playing 143 games, stealing three bases. So if he's like 4-6 in that department, eh, like there's some
Yeah.
doubles. Like what is the bat?
Yeah, the bags thing is annoying. I
Yeah,
don't
that's
know.
weird.
I don't know what's up with that. Like, I know he had an ankle thing in the past, and now like the shoulder thing, the injury, going for a ball in the outfield, probably not going to help him want to steal anymore
Yeah,
either. So I don't know. It should be a part of his game though. Like that's the when you're that archetype of player, you got to find a way to provide value and in every which way. And I know he's not like a plus runner, but he's comfortably plus.
yeah, he's
Um,
definitely fast.
He's definitely fast. He
Yeah.
got thrown out three times too. He was 2 for 5. Like I don't understand. I don't understand. So I think that has to be a part of his game. But yeah, it's hard to envision a true breakout from him. I do think that he's going to be valuable and help the Giants a ton because if he's a 740 OPS guy, which I think he can get there through the doubles and walking and grinding out ABs while playing good defense and center, like the Giants would welcome that. But I don't know if that would constitute a breakout, so to speak. That might be a couple years away. And we've seen players coming over from the KBO, like Ha-Sung Kim. It takes a couple years to fully settle in. So I still think there's going to be another, especially after losing so much time last year, get your feet wet year. but he's going to need to elevate the ball a lot more consistently. And I think that's going to be the thing to monitor. I don't know if I love him as like a full-fledged breakout, but I do think he takes a step forward.
What flavor of ice cream is Jung Hoo Lee's breakout?
It's kind of a vanilla, right? It's the same story where it's
Yeah.
it's like good batting average, not a ton of walks, but never Ks. The slug isn't high. He hovers around 100 WRC plus and plays good defense in center field. Like that's kind of how I see it.
The reason I say is it vanilla, like vanilla's a decent flavor. But we talked about it before, like all ice cream is pretty good. But like it could be an ice cream flavor that you don't love.
Yeah.
Like if he's 5 and 6, like home
Yeah.
runs and
But that's what I'm
stolen
saying. So is it
bases.
even a breakout?
Yeah.
I think he'd have to be a legit lead the league in triples and like have a ton of doubles. And realistically, the way that he breaks out is he hits 300, right? Like where because the
Yeah.
contact rates, the zone in zone contact rates and general contact rates imply that he should be able to. He ran a 93% in zone contact rate and an 82% out of zone contact rate, meaning like overall contact rate of 90%. That's a guy that should have the ability to hit 300. So I guess it would be being that 300 hitter. That would be the way that he breaks out.
I think that would be like a Cherry Garcia type breakout. The Ben and Jerry's flavor, it's cherry
Because we
ice cream.
hate batting average.
It's not that good. I mean, but
Yeah.
it's ice cream. Like in a pinch, you'd want a guy like that. But if he's like a 94 WRC plus again, like even if he does hit 300, like is on base skills going to be enough for like the OBP to be that high?
Yeah, that's the
Like, do
problem.
you like Cherry Garcia ice cream?
No,
It's
no.
okay. It's
Also, what's the
okay.
Garcia from?
I don't know. It was so funny. Did you see me typing while you were talking? I was like, what is the cherry ice cream flavor from Ben and Jerry's called? All right.
You didn't remember Garcia?
Yeah, Freddie Garcia. Shout out Freddie Garcia. Give me my first baseball. All right. Next up on the list, Spencer Horowitz. This is more fun. This is more fun of a breakout because we get to talk about the bat. So, again, went over to the Pirates in like 4 different trades this offseason. It was originally for Andres Jimenez. Then he goes from the Guardians in exchange for Luis Ortiz. And the Pirates, like, they had a horrific offseason. This is their
Their best
best
move.
move by
Yeah.
far. I mean, they didn't have
And
many
then he
moves.
ended up having to get surgery anyways,
And
which is
also,
awesome.
I love Luis Ortiz.
Yeah.
So, but here's the thing: Spencer Horowitz can hit.
Oh yeah.
Second best hitter on the Blue Jays last year by WRC plus at 127. And I think the reason we freaked out about that trade initially because we were like, Blue Jays, we're trading bats with this high of a floor, right? He doesn't chase, walks above 10%, doesn't swing and miss in the zone either. I guess the one negative you could say is he's going to make a lot of consistent contact. He's going to make good swing decisions, but is the quality of the contact going to be good enough to make a real impact in order to really, really break out here? Because he's also probably going to play first base.
Yeah, that's the thing.
So, I guess my question is just super easy. Like, can he make enough quality of contact to make a real impact to institute a breakout for Spencer Horowitz?
Well, and breakout's relative, right? So he'd have to take a
Yes.
step forward from 790 OPS and
Yeah.
12 homers. He'd have to tap into more power, I mean. But also, I think you mentioned the swing decisions and the contact ability. Like, if he pushes to 280 and 370, and then he taps into a little bit more power, I think it's enough across the board getting bumped up to where he's breaking out, so to speak. He hits the ball. You talk about it's like when you get your best swing off, what angle are you hitting the ball at? Like he's pulling the ball in the air really well. And he's hitting the ball. I think like when he's in advantage counts, he's cheating and he's getting them out to the pull side and putting himself in good spots. So like I do think he can absolutely hit 20 home runs. And then if he's upping his OBP by 10, 15 points and his batting average by 10 points, if he's putting up like an 840 OPS, I do think that's a breakout, especially if he's eclipsing 20 home runs. And I think he can do that. I do think it's very well. Obviously, wrist thing. You know, we're talking injury aside, obviously, because wrist stuff is tough. But I do think it's very possible. The only thing the holdback I think is he did not hit well against lefties. It was like 522 OPS against left-handed pitching. But the flip side of that is 864 OPS against righties. Basically, if he can put together the righty slash line, like what he did against righties, 285, 380, 484, like that's a breakout, man.
That is Rocky Road. I
Yeah,
mean, that's an
that's Rocky
excellent
Road.
breakout. But here's the thing: Fangraphs thinks he's more Cherry Garcia.
Yeah,
The projections on him are horrible.
really.
But the thing is, what's
I
weird
think
is
they
like,
bake in the minor league sometimes too, and the age to level, and
yeah, it's like 20. Fangraphs is looking at him as like, all right, we got a 27-year-old who's coming off 97 games with 12 home runs. Like, we're gonna put him at 138 games with 12 home runs, which makes no sense to me. Like, a lot of these projection systems have him playing just over 100 games and hitting between 8 to 10 home runs.
he's gonna be. I think he's gonna be one
I
of
think
their
they're
best
just
hitters.
I think they're just wrong. Like, I
Yeah,
don't know what else to say. I think those are just wrong. I think those
yeah.
are not giving him enough credit. But what they are giving him credit for, 365 OBP. So they see the walks, they see his ability to hit for a high average, but they just are not giving him anything in the slugging department, which then brought me to, do you think that he can hit enough power to bypass all of those? I do. I do. I just wanted to hear your
I
opinion.
do too. I mean, and you look at the quality of contact, like, this is a guy that you could be like, oh, maybe there's a gap between the WOBA and the XWOBA, but there's not. It's pretty
No,
much
he hits.
identical.
Yeah, he
Like
hits.
he just it's pretty damn consistent. I think over a full season, he's a guy that's probably going to be a little bit like environment dependent. But it's not like he's sitting in some impossible ballpark. 88% average exit velocity, like that's more than enough with the angles he hits the ball at. I think he's going to hit again, barring health and how he comes back from the wrist. 20 home runs, and again, if I think the big gain for him will just be improving left on left. If instead of a 522 OPS left on left, it's a 622 OPS, and then a little bit of an improvement just in general against righties, he's probably in a pretty damn good spot. So I think the projection systems are definitely a little bit harsh on him, especially with the ability to hit sliders. And like with a lot of the guys that we're talking about, that's like a bugaboo. And for him, it's not. Against sliders at the big league level, he had a 965 OPS.
Pretty damn good. All right,
Yeah.
let's move to our next guy. And I know you love him. So I'll give him a quick intro, then I'll throw it over to you. Ivan Herrera, catcher for the
I was wondering who you were going to say. That's honestly so much funnier.
Ivan Herrera, catcher for the St. Louis Cardinals. You can find an article written by Jay Staff on justbaseball.com. The positives, man, the guy hits, and he hits a
He
lot. He hits
is.
hits for average, hits for power, but it's not a ton of swing and miss. Makes good swing decisions, doesn't strike out that much, walks enough. But here's the thing. Here's the negative with Ivan Herrera. And I'll let you talk about how much you love the bat. And maybe you love the bat so much that the defense doesn't matter. Because it's not like he was great defensively when he came up with the Cardinals, but you've loved him as a prospect. Do you think that the defense is always kind of going to be below average and he's got to hit? Or do you think it could tick up to average? Because again, if it's average defense with this bat, that's a really, really good catcher still.
Yeah, absolutely. And what the interesting thing is, I think for him, he was kind of getting like thrown back and forth, and then like, is Wilson the catcher? What are they doing? The bat has always been ahead for sure, and the big reason why I liked him as a prospect was just I like the bat so much that I thought when we were comparing and when we put him in the top 100 list, it was just his bat is better than some of the other outfielders that I was looking at that are
Yeah.
in the top 100. I couldn't believe we were the only outlet that had him in there, but I mean, it is that is kind of the golden question there. But I do think he's just a good enough framer at this point and a good enough blocker that yeah, he might not be great at limiting the running game, and that might be one limitation there. But if you are a good receiver, like you can get close enough to average where you're going to be fine. And I do think at 24 years old, now finally they move Wilson off. He's going to be catching, it's him and Pedro Pages. Like they're going to be catching a lot, and finally he's going to get those reps at the big league level. If he's even slightly below average, I do think the bat is so damn good that he's going to be an above average catcher. My question to you is the breakout, quote unquote, improvements defensively? Because offensively, how much more do you want to see from him? What did he slash last year? Was it 300, 372, 428? Do I have that right?
301, 372, 428. You
Okay.
fucking nailed it.
Okay.
I guess the breakout for me is just do it over the full season, right? He only did it in 72 games last
Yeah.
year. So if he's hitting, 280 with a 350 OBP and he's slugging, 430-ish, right? And he gets 10 to 15 home runs while playing fine defense, I think that's a breakout. And
Yeah.
I think that's coffee ice cream, like pretty damn good. Really good with pie
Yeah.
and cake and stuff. Like I'll take coffee ice cream, chocolate ice cream. Doesn't have all the special sprinkles on it and all the different toppings that you might want, but it's definitely better than a vanilla breakout. So
Yep.
that's kind of where I'd be out with him. The one thing that I was a little bit confused about because when I watch Ivan Herrera, I feel like there's more power than what the numbers said because there was
Mhm.
5 home runs last year, and Fangraphs projection has him at like 8 or 9 this year. I'm like, what? When I watch Ivan Herrera, it feels like 20, but
Yeah.
it's not really. What do you think?
It's another guy that like when he's getting his best swings off, it's
Yeah,
low line drives though. Like, but then all of a sudden he runs into one, and I'll never forget like the one I saw in AAA where it was a 113 mile per hour home run, and but to your point though, like he had never had like the 25 home run season, so I was like, holy shit, he's got that in there, and so that's when I was like, oh, okay, there's definitely more in there. But what's weird is if you look at the numbers against fastballs, like he's productive against them, very productive. But he only hit like 2 home runs against fastballs at the big league level. So you're wondering like, what does he need to do? It's just finding a little bit more loft in that swing. But what I love is like it just feels like the floor is so high because the contact's there. He's gonna be able to spray the ball over the yard. And I just think as he gets a little bit more comfortable, he is going to start elevating. The hard hit rate was north of 40%. The 90th percentile exit velocity was north of 105. And the big thing with Herrera is it was a tangible swing adjustment that he made between 2022 and 2023, and then really unlocked it going into 2024. That really has me buying in. So that is the big question though, because raw power wise, I think it's comfortably above average, but game
definitely.
power wise, he's never quite tapped into it. He's 24 though. Like if he can even just reach to 15 to 20 home runs,
Oh yeah,
the
breakout.
contact rates are going to be there. He's going to hit his doubles. Like it's another guy that if you look at the, I think expected stats versus the regular stats, I think if anything, the expected stats will be higher.
I guess I'm also thinking about our fantasy baseball brethren. The people who it's like they're hearing a lot about how Ivan Herrera, how he's going to hit, and it's like, is he going to help fantasy baseball people? I don't know why I just thought of that right now, but
I
because
think
I'm
so because like he's going to hit for average. He's going to get on base. He's going to steal more bags than Jung Hoo Lee.
yeah,
Um,
yes, he stole 5 last year. It's so funny. One of these projections have has him at 9 home runs, 6 steals. It's like
yeah, he's got to hit more than nine. He's got
right,
to. I think he's got to. I
got to be in
I
the
think
double
it's
digits.
15, 10 to 15. If it's 10 to 15 though, like again, I think that's enough to constitute a breakout because he's going to hit for average. He's going to get on base. The defense getting a little bit better. It'll be one of those improvements across the board where he ends up having a 3-4 win season. I would qualify that as a breakout for a guy that wasn't on any top 100 list going into last year. I know that he did what he did at the big league level, but it was also like weirdly sporadic, up and down at points. Like I still feel like he doesn't get nearly enough love, and I think it's part of the reason why I won't fully shut the door on the Cardinals being a surprise team. You move Wilson to first. He was one of the most productive hitters in baseball through stretches last year. And we're ranking first baseman. I'm like, if he hits the way he can hit, he can be a top 5 first baseman. Herrera has a chance to be an above average catcher. And then you start to look around the rest of the diamond, young guys that can make a leap. Like, I don't hate the team. That's what makes it almost more frustrating that they didn't actually try to invest anything into it.
I think I could shut the door on them being a surprise team because I'd be like, you're right. They do have some guys that could take some leaps and bounds on offense. Now go look at the pitching staff.
Yeah.
You know, you
A
know
lot of old guys, but they got good prospects that are ready to go that they just refuse to give opportunity to.
it's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jordan Walker
It's
playing and
scary when
hitting
you're
as
not
well.
trying to win too, right? It
Yeah.
makes even less sense.
But one thing I will say is if Ivan Herrera only hits 9 home runs, he doesn't even get an ice cream label. He gets an oatmeal raisin cookie.
Ugh. Underrated cookie.
You're kind of right, but not really. Like
Yeah.
you can
No
even
one's getting
like
excited about it.
no,
Yeah.
yeah. You go to let's say
I'm taking it.
you go somewhere and they have a plate of cookies and you're like, oh, you see the cookies from the other side of the room, and then you walk over and it's like, yeah, oatmeal
It's
raisin
always the
isn't
oatmeal
bad, but
raisin
I
as
wish
well.
it was snickerdoodle or chocolate chip.
Yeah. That's how I
And I
started to like them, though. I was always so slow to the plate. I'd always just end up with what's left, and I just grew to like the oatmeal raisin
do you like cookies or ice cream better? Just curious.
cookies.
I like ice cream way better.
I know it's a hot
Brownies,
take, but cookies.
brownies over both though.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Big brownie guy. All right, we just did our food talk. Now it's time for our last break. All right, we got two more hitters, and then Arm and I will get to our two breakout pitchers in the National League. Next up, Connor Norby of the Miami Marlins. You can find an article written by Harrison Bruns on justbaseball.com. Positive. Sneaky one of the highest sprint speeds last year in
Isn't
Major
that
League
crazy?
Baseball. Like sneaky quick. And he can definitely barrel up a baseball. Like I've seen him get off his A swing. He can launch baseballs. Like if you look at barrel rate, if you look at the launch angle, sweet spot, those kind of stuff on Baseball Savant, they're very red. But then you got a lot of blue because he has to make better swing decisions,
Oh yeah.
right? I mean, you've seen it. Struck out 33% of the time, chased even more than that. What is Connor Norby for the Marlins in 2025?
That's a big question, right? Because also it's the defensive side of things too, where they're
Yeah,
sticking him at third and he's like not good there, and
he's a
he's never
second
played
baseman.
there before. Like to his credit, like, but you assume he's naturally just going to be better there. He's had a whole offseason to take reps there. He's going to have the spring to take reps there, so naturally he's going to improve defensively. The interesting thing is he shows the ability to walk in at times and lay off of the spin. Where I think the chase rate ends up going up is like I've never seen the guy spin on a first pitch. When he gets deep into counts, then he starts to settle in and he'll battle. But he gives away a lot of strikes early. So with him, I do think it is a approach thing rather than like I can't get myself out of swing mode because it's just the
Mm.
way I am. Like I do think that he could adjust his sights and his approach to help him there. But he's got to make more contact because he's not a guy that's going to produce crazy EVs. But to your point, he gets his swing off, and you know, really the path is geared for lift to all fields, and he can leave the yard like from foul pole to foul pole. There was points where he'll sell out to the pull side, but then we saw him settle in at the big league level and go foul pole to foul pole. So, like he said, he wants to hit 30 home runs this year. um, yeah, he hit 9 in 45 games at the big league level. Like it's not that far off. Uh, he's a guy at a 32% ground ball rate. Like he is going to hit the ball in the air. You know what his ground ball rate was on four seamers? Just take a guess.
Ground ball rate on four seamers for
I can tell
Connor.
you what the MLB average was about 33%.
Um, that's such a tough question. The way you pose it to me is if it's pretty damn high.
No,
I,
other way.
oh, other way. I would
17%. I like
that's awesome.
it's awesome, but also it's like, okay, you are trying to hit everything in the air.
Yeah.
That works if you're leaving the yard. So he's going to try to leave the yard a lot. It's surprising for a guy that's 6 foot 180, if that, and I think that's a generous listing. Um, yeah, he's a tough player for me to figure out. I always thought he was going to be a little bit more like hit over power as a prospect, tons of doubles, outslug the exit velocities and surprise you with a chance to sneak towards 20 home runs. But now it's like, I think he's a guy that's going to just try to hit a lot of home runs. And I don't know where the batting average and OBP is going to settle.
The projection systems on Fangraphs, salted caramel.
Wow.
I mean, listen to this. 20 bombs, 10 steals, 104 WRC plus, 2.1 F4. That's the high one.
Wow. That's
Like
good for a projection system.
that's I mean, he's coming off zero point 0.1 WAR in 45 games. Like this is a guy who is not really well known yet, but they're kind of buying into it.
Oh,
Like
for sure.
if he's a third baseman at 25 years old, hitting 20 home runs, stealing 10 bases, and putting up a WRC plus above 100, and he's like a 2.5 win player,
Oh, I mean,
that's a
uh,
that's a like I think that's a breakout.
I do too because he was traded for Trevor Rogers with
Yeah.
another player.
Yeah.
Like you had to think about that. Like, yeah, if he proves to be an above average regular, yeah, it's a breakout to me. 100%. I like the bar is lower with him than some of the other guys we're talking about, but also the expectations were a lot lower. By the way, average launch angle on hard hit balls by Connor Norby, 27 degrees. I think
Optimal.
average is like 13.
Get the
So
ball in the
like
air.
he's gonna let it eat in the air, dude. And like it might work. So if he's hitting 20 to 25 and he cuts down on the K's a little bit and the defense gets better, yeah, I mean, I think that's a breakout. If it's slightly better than those projection systems, I do think that's a breakout for a guy that, again, was traded with Kyle Stowers for Trevor Rogers and, is somebody that I think ultimately, like even myself, I just still kind of do think he's more of a utility type. So that would be a great outcome. And I would constitute that as a breakout.
And just for everybody listening, right? You hear 2.5 WAR, and that sounds low. You're like a 2.5 win player. Let me remind everybody, Matt Olson put up a 2.6 WAR last year.
Yeah.
Like Michael Bush, who was a good player, played 152 games, hit 20 bombs, was an above average hitter, 2.3 FWAR. Bryce Terang can rack it up, stole 50 bases, great defense, 2.5 win player. Josh Naylor, 2.3. Cody Bellinger, 2.2. Brian Reynolds of the Pirates, 2.1.
Yeah.
So if like Connor Norby is in that range,
That's great.
that's salted
You're
caramel.
thrilled. Yeah,
You're
you're thrilled
thrilled.
with that.
Next up, our last hitter, and this one I'm going to throw over to you because he doesn't have any big league stats yet, right? We haven't seen him yet. Matt Shaw of the Chicago Cubs. You can find the article again written by Ryan Herrera. I think I kind of know what you're going to say. So instead of just me regurgitating it, I'll let you have the floor. Matt Shaw, what does a breakout for him look like?
I mean, I put the bar pretty high for him. Breakout is interesting because we're talking about a guy that hasn't played yet, so it's like
Yeah.
debut and breakout. I was thinking about that with pitchers. I was going to ask you like it has to be a guy that's already pitched, right? So that's how I based it. But
Yeah.
I do think that Shaw should be the exception here, especially after the Cubs didn't get Bregman because he's the guy for them at third. Like I know that they signed Turner and they've got Birdie, but like it's going to be Matt Shaw. I think a breakout's and realistically, I think this is what he can do. He's my rookie of the year favorite. I do think he's going to somehow beat Sasaki. 2020, because he gets bags too. And
One
I think,
one quick thing, projections like they're with you. It's like 17 and 18,
wow, I mean,
like
that's really high
17
for
to
a rookie.
18 home runs, like 15 to 20 stolen bases. Like they're here. They're with you. 2.5 win projections too. And again, conservative.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
we're looking good here.
the defense has gotten so much better at third base in a short period of time where, like, I think he could grade out as at least an average, maybe a slightly above average defender there. He got better and better and better as the year progressed. And the Double A Southern League, which is a nightmare for hitters, and then Triple A, where he was quite young for the level at 22 years old. Over his final 50 games of the year, he slashed 335, 417, 585. It's 1,003 OPS with
Mm.
11 home runs, 10 doubles, two triples. Um, I think it looks like a really fun combination of power and speed. He's a guy that also just hits the living crap out of the ball where it's more line drives that are going to leave the yard, but a lot of doubles. So I don't know if it's going to be 30, but I think 2020 and he doesn't K a lot. Like I think ultimately that's a breakout for a rookie without a doubt.
21 home runs, 31 stolen bases last year in the minor leagues over 121 games, walking a ton, barely striking out. And throughout the minor leagues, like to your point, no wonder you like him. I mean, the numbers are absurd. He's just so freaking consistent year in and year out. Do you think that, right? We talk about rookies struggling with the breaking balls. Like, is that going to be
Mhm.
there?
I think there'll be an adjustment period for any hitter, but I thought he looked so much more comfortable. He made an adjustment to where like he starts like really inverted, like he almost like when he loads, his back is almost facing the pitcher, and you think, oh, maybe that's going to be a challenge for him to turn around velocity inside. No, I sorted by pitches inside 95 plus, and he somehow turns those around too. He stays on him so well, man. And the way ability to drive the ball to all fields, like there may be like it's the big leagues. It's so freaking hard, but he hit 321 against sliders over that final 60 game span, and it just seems like he hits all pitch types, pitches in all different locations. I think it's going to be hard to get him out point blank. So I think there'll be an adjustment, so to speak, but not like some of these other guys in terms of the challenges with sliders, and he recognizes them so well too that I think he'll be able to hedge that.
So we finished our top 10, and I think going through this exercise both on Wednesday and both on Friday, like we talk about the word breakout and we kind of just slap it on a lot of young players that we like.
Mhm.
So I think this was a great exercise to find out truly what the word breakout is. Right on the American League side, I think there was one true Wyatt Langford. Like
Yeah,
that could be the guy to break out. It's like, holy shit.
he's a star.
On this side, I think it's James Wood, where
Yep.
it's like, oh my God, the numbers could be insane. But then the other guys, like you work through them, it's like, what constitutes
Yep.
a breakout? And it's so funny. We started with James Wood and we ended with Matt Shaw. And I'm like, I think Matt Shaw would be second if we're talking about breakouts, if that makes sense.
He's just like he's different. He's just one of those guys I think is just gonna roll out of bed and hit. But I'm with you there. I think I have more confidence in Matt Shaw having a breakout season than a Pete Crow Armstrong. And Pete Crow Armstrong has, half season under his belt.
All right. Get ready, Cubs fans. You got two guys on the list. All right. It's time to talk pitching. Do you have any preference? You want to go first? You want me to go first?
Oh, you go ahead.
Sweet. So I'll start with my guy, Ryan Nelson of the Arizona
Oh yeah.
Diamondbacks. So it's so funny because I've come full circle on this guy. When he was originally pitching for the D backs, earlier on, right, pre All Star break, he pitched to a 4.98 ERA with 80 in 86 innings with 59 strikeouts. The walks were all over the place. And when I was watching him, I was like, God, do not bring Ryan Nelson in. Something clicked. In the second half, post All Star break, 3.23 ERA, 64 innings pitched, 67 strikeouts. And the reason I found out about Ryan Nelson is I bet against him. And I was watching the start and I'm like, something's up because the fastball is buzzing by guys. And he's throwing it 60% of the time. Like there was a start, I think, against the Red Sox where it was all fastballs, blowing it by guys. It's 95, but it's got a ton of life on him. And he extends so far down the mound and he's got a bunch of different pitches, but when he was going cutter and when he was going slider and he was going changeup, like that was working. And we're thinking about, all right, and I did this kind of for the Twins. Like on the AL side, I was like, I like David Festa to break out because I think he's going to win that fifth spot in the Twins rotation.
I love that pick. I forgot that we were doing National League for a second, and I had David Festa written down before I adjusted before we started. But like, I had my David Festa pitch ready to go before we started the pod.
So when I'm looking at, again, guys who are going to win that fifth spot, you got Eduardo Rodriguez because you look at the Diamondbacks rotation and it's Burns, it's Gallen, it's Kelly, and it's Fott. That's just what it's going to be. I'm so sick of Eduardo Rodriguez. Like, put Ryan Nelson in there and let the fastball eat. The one concern with Nelson is like, there's no strikeouts here.
Yeah.
But when he's striking it over a batter for 9 in the second half and blowing fastballs by guys, and then the breaking balls are working better off, and I'm like, all right, I see it here. Now, is he going to pitch to a 3-2? Probably not. But is he in the 3-7 range over 160 innings? Like, that's a really valuable pitcher with 160 strikeouts. I think he's going to be around there. So I think that'll definitely constitute a breakout from a guy nobody's really heard of. And even me, myself, thinking that he's terrible just at the beginning of last year, turning into a really valuable pitcher for the Diamondbacks, which then continues to elevate them. And also, my MLB futures are out. So for everybody who has checked out that YouTube video and the corresponding article on justbaseball.com, you saw why I love Ryan Nelson so much. So you can go listen to that as well. But I'm all aboard the Diamondbacks this year, and a big part of it is Brandon Pfaadt taking a leap. But if we're talking about breakouts, even lower down the totem pole, I think Ryan Nelson is a great one.
I mean, just the strike throwing ability in the second half was massive. I mean, I think over his final 10 starts, he was filling it up at a 70% clip.
Yeah.
And when you're doing that with 19 inches of vert, and then you mentioned how it sets up the secondaries, he looked like he finally figured it out. I agree. Like it may not be he may not be competing for Cy Youngs, but I think you could feel really good about him being in the back of your rotation. And I think flashing stretches where he's pitching like a mid rotation starter. So
Yeah.
I think he saw it go through last year and kind of found what works for him. And hopefully he'll get the opportunity to build on what was an awesome second half.
So you're up next. Tell us about David Festa.
No, I adjusted in time. I think I realized like an hour before recording, but I do love Festa. I think he's gonna have a huge year, and they'll definitely need him. Especially I think because they're gonna salary dump Chris Paddock at some point.
They should.
But I'm gonna go with the guy that I literally just watched throw yesterday, and Ryan Weathers.
Mm.
I know he had a good year last year. Like if you look at the numbers, so like I'm not necessarily expecting him to dwarf those numbers or anything, but it does feel like people, like, I think you would surprise a lot of people by telling them that Ryan Weathers had a 3.63 over 16 starts last year.
Yeah.
Like I don't think they would have expected that. And you know, this is like a best shape of your life alert here. He went on a carnivore diet, which I didn't even know. You already are on that. He went on a carnivore diet and lost like 20 pounds. And you know, he
If
looks
I'm
like
on the
he's
carnivore diet, why am I not losing weight? Like I'm
I
gaining
don't,
weight, so I'm not doing it right.
you're mixing in too much Cherry Garcia.
Yeah.
Um, but
Just
he
eating ice cream that sucks.
just, just hating yourself.
Ugh.
But he was really solid, and a finger thing kind of disrupted what was a really nice stretch for him. But a focus for him, and again, this is going to be a little bit of like bias, not because I like the Marlins, bias because I just saw him and I know what he was working on, and I was hearing them talk about it. He averaged 96 miles per hour on his fastball this past year, yet it got crushed. It got crushed because he doesn't extend great. And I think part of that was not being in the best of shape and not moving as well. Now he's moving better. He's apparently extending a little bit better. And he was aware that the fastball got hit hard through stretches. The thing is, the changeup played like a plus pitch. The slider looked like a really good pitch for him, and he was filling up the zone. Uh, when he was on, we saw him punch out 11 Rangers at one point. We saw him finish the year with 11 and two thirds innings or 11 and a thirds innings of one run ball. We saw him strike out 10 Giants. So, like, if you're a lefty that's throwing 96 and you've already found and identified some things characteristically to make it better, you have a plus changeup off of that, and you've got the slider to get guys out left on left that, from a strike throwing perspective, got better and better as the year progressed. I'm interested to see what it looks like. He also mixes in a sinker as well, and I think that was a pitch that he needed to find more consistency with. He's 25. He was 24 for the entirety of last year, by the way. Dad was a big league arm. I don't know. I just feel like between the velocity and the feel for two secondaries there, best shape of my life alert. I do feel like Ryan Weathers can give you, if he gives you 170 innings of a 3.6, like, and he said, I want to go out there and eat innings. That's why I ate meat only for the last however many months. I think that's a breakout, no?
That is absolutely a breakout. And to your point, I remember when we were watching him on the backfields and like the way I was like, you were like Ryan Weathers is on the mound, and I think I was like facing the other way, and I heard the pop in the mitt. I was like, whoa. I was
You
like,
think he's a soft
throwing,
tossing lefty,
he's
right?
throwing
Like,
gas.
yeah.
Like he was facing like backfields level hitters, but I mean they had no shot against him. And then we were watching him kind of during the season, and he would flash like some really good starts and he would get into it. The problem was consistency with him. But if he's building on that and finding success with some secondary pitches, like, yeah, I could see it. I guess my last question for you on Ryan Weathers is let's say Sandy gets traded. Do you think he turns into the ace this year? The
Until
Marlins, I
Yuri
know
comes back. Like,
oh, of course, and Yuri, I forgot.
but yeah, like he's there with Braxton out too. Like that's the thing is he knows he's got to go out there and eat innings. And like I think there's this chip on his shoulder of like, I'm gonna be one of the main guys in this rotation. And I mean he looked really, really good on the mound yesterday. He was moving quite well.
So my next guy, and it's funny, the reason that I started to notice about this player was when we watched him in Milwaukee. Do you remember who was pitching for the Atlanta Braves that day? Grant
Grant
Holmes.
Holmes.
So Grant Holmes threw 5 innings, 3 hits, 1 run, 8 strikeouts against that Brewers offense that was hot at the time. And I'm like, hmm. But I was looking kind of into his metrics. I was like, well, he doesn't get a lot of extension off the mound. He doesn't have that many starts in general. Like, how good is the fastball? It performed really well. Like, the metrics on it were really solid. He's sitting at 95, but it's his breaking balls that I'm like more intrigued by. His
Slider's
slider
gross.
is gross. His curveball is gross, and both garnered whiff rates above 40%. Keeps the ball on the ground at an above average rate. 90th percentile in walk rate. I'm like, ooh. And then you watch him pitch, and he kind of can mow through a lineup, right? We even watched him in person, but he made 7 starts, all went pretty well, except for one start against the Rockies, where he gave it 5 earned in Colorado, which, what can you do? But again, it's along the same theme of who's going to win the 5 starter role. Because right now, he's definitely just going to be in the rotation because Spencer Strider is hurt. But when Spencer Strider returns, and it's Sale, it's Schwellenbach, it's Reynaldo Lopez, and it's Strider, who's 5? I think it's Grant Holmes.
Yeah.
And I think this is a real pitcher. I know he's a little bit older. I know you like look at him before you throw a pitch and you're like, this guy, like
He
he's
looks
got
like a
the
reliever.
yeah, he looks like a reliever. Like he's a big old boy. Like he's got the handlebar mustache and everything like that. But it's like, nah, he shoves. And I was surprised at how good the fastball performed, even though it's not 100, it's 95, which is still pretty fast. But he's in the 12th percentile of extension down the mound. I'm not really sure why it works, but it works.
I think a big reason why Anthopoulos has been okay sitting back and just waiting. I mean, they're doing their due diligence, but I don't think they're forcing it. They're not desperate to make a move for an arm. Is I do think they really do believe that Grant Holmes can be a back end rotation arm for them. And I mean, I think he earned the opportunity to get more looks with what he did. And I mean, the last outing of the year, he punched out 7 and 4 innings against the Mets. Like the
Dominated.
fastball seems to work somehow. I don't know if it's deception or what it is. I'm with you. Like I don't totally know how, but it does. And that slider is a comfortably plus pitch that allows him to get hitters out consistently, and he's got a curveball off of that as well. I love the pick. Honestly, I think he's a guy that could absolutely just churn out quality starts for them. And the fact that he doesn't give any free passes out, I think really does help his case too.
And Zips has him at a 3.71 ERA. It's just all these projection systems just don't have him throwing over like 100 innings. But I'm like, I don't see a reason that he can't if he stays in that 5th starter role. And I kind of think he could be another guy similar to Ryan Nelson, where I'm like 150 innings at a 3.7. I think that's well within reach here. Like if he's
Yeah,
keeping
and
the ball on the ground, if he's not walking anybody and he's striking out a batter per 9 innings, that's gonna lead to around those numbers.
well, and what I love too is, the velo was pretty close, as a starter. Fastball velo is 94.3. As a reliever, it was like 94.7. Like, so he's holding his velo and he's stretched out. Like, I think he's going to get an opportunity.
Well, that's my last guy. Who's yours?
So I wanted to go with Michael McGreevy initially, just because like I really was impressed when we did the Cardinal system. By the way, we're doing every single team's farm system on the call up right now. Like I've been flying through them all. It's been really fun. But McGreevy made some changes where I think he's going to be like one of the most satisfying quintessential innings eaters for the Cardinals. He got up and he was really good. He added a cutter. He changed his fastball a little bit to where he's got the heavy sinker, which was always something that he used, but now he has a four-seamer that's a tick harder that he's buzzing at the top. He changed his slider to a sweeper, which is playing way better as well instead of a kind of blendy slider before. And I think it's resulted in him being able to be a really solid back end arm. But he's not going to be in the rotation for opening day because like Steven Matz has to get innings or whatever. So I went with the more chalk option, which
You don't want Michaelis throwing 300
yeah,
innings this year?
he's literally a better younger Michaelis at this point, and it's instead we're going to get Michaelis throwing 1,000 innings. I'll go with the obvious pick that I know a lot of people like. It's got to be Hayden Birdsong, and Birdsong, just because I know if we didn't mention him, and you're like, oh, well, why didn't he mention Birdsong? Verlander was giving him pointers I saw it on TikTok yesterday. Well, one, I actually do love that for him. I think Verlander is basically like you just hired one of the best
Yeah.
pitching coaches.
Like we're joking, but we're not. Like those things
No,
all matter. Yes.
that does absolutely matter. But watching the starts at the end of the year, it's a really unique setup there where it's an uncomfortable at bat against this guy. And I mean, the last outing of the year, he went 4 1/3 and punched out 11.
Yeah.
The problem is, he can leave stuff over the middle and then, he'll get hit hard. But you think about where he's playing, he's going to get away with more mistakes in San Francisco. Same reason why we liked Verlander being able to play there is like the big issue was the home run. I think he can mitigate that to a degree. He's got a little bit of deception there. The way everything works vertically is really nasty. The late break on the slider is gross, and he needed something to kind of fade away from lefties, and he found that kick change at the end of the year, and that change really made a big difference. I think being able to get that arm side fade that he gets, you really have a nice four pitch mix that keeps hitters off balance. He mixes them really evenly, and he sits 96 with the fastball. So I think the four pitch mix in that ballpark with what he found changeup wise and the flashes at the end of the year, I do ultimately think this is just a guy that's going to settle in and have a really nice season. And I think it's a breakout because run prevention wise, he wasn't great. You look at the 16 starts last year, it was a
Yep.
4.75. So,
Yeah.
like, I think he's going to be much better in the run prevention department. Again, home runs were the big problem, also walks. I know that there were some things that he was working on mechanically to fill up the zone a little bit more. If those home runs are solo shots more frequently, that's naturally going to help. But I also think he's just in a better spot now. He struck out 28% of batters. And
Yeah.
that was before, really finding that change up and finding more of a feel for it. I think he can be a monster this year if he can just execute a little bit better.
I really like the Birdsong pick because I think with Verlander in his ear, he can improve on that fastball. Because when I was watching Birdsong last year, yeah, you're right. It was 95, 96, even touching 97, but it didn't look like it, and it was getting hit really hard. And then I saw that he'd go to the breaking balls and then get all the strikeouts. And I'm like, okay, so all of your breaking balls are really, really good. The whiff rates are really, really high. You're throwing them where you want to, but then you go back to the fastball and it's just getting hit hard. Like sometimes they were line outs to the shortstop or line outs to center field, but that's just what I noticed. And then the stats even back it up. I mean, a 412 xWOBA against it. Like
Yeah.
expected slugging was 529. But the
And
thing is that it was 16 starts and you already have a bunch of good breaking balls. If you can just make a few tweaks to your fastball, and even if it's average, that ERA is going to dip below 4. So
yeah,
it's like he's just a few tweaks away from being a really solid pitcher.
I also think a big reason why that fastball got hit so hard at points was because he was pitching from behind a lot. A fastball is a lot better when you're ahead and they're worried about the breaking ball than when you're 2-0 and they're sitting on it.
Mm.
60% strike rate on the fastball, 60% strike rate overall. He was falling behind too often, and then hitters they can time up anything. So yeah, like you said, if he's able to cut down on the barrels against the fastball, which I do think will just be naturally from getting ahead and then making a tweak here or there. I mean, in that video, Verlander was telling him about good misses. I think having more good misses instead of non-competitive pitches, I think could be a huge difference for him. And a 6'4" righty, he was 22 years old last year. He's gonna be 23 for almost the entirety of the season. I could absolutely see him making a leap this year.
Can we get Logan Webb in his ear, teach him a sinker?
Oh, that would be if he could find the sinker from that slot too. Like it would play.
All I need to be like fully aboard the Hayden Birdsong agenda is to just see like one of those pictures. You see the Dodgers in the spring training where it was like Snell next to Glasnow, next to Roki, next to Shohei, next to all these guys. Like I want to see them in a spring training bullpen, and it's like Birdsong throwing a bullpen, and like Verlander's on his left and Webb's on his right. I'm like, I'm in. I'm now in.
Well, where's
Just
Robbie
because
Ray?
I don't know where Robbie Ray is. No, I like Robbie Ray. I still think is like pretty good when he
He
does
is
things.
pretty good.
And I don't care what Jack says. I like watching Robbie Ray. Like
I
I
do
know Jack
too.
hates him. Like I like him.
I do too.
Kind of fun. All right, so that'll do it for our National League breakout episode. Hopefully you enjoyed and you enjoyed all of the ice cream references. And if you did, best way to support liking and subscribing,
That too.
commenting on YouTube, but also rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And what I will say is our Spotify audience is 5 stars. They are killing it over on Spotify. I'm asking if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, go help us out. A nice little written review, 5 stars if you've been enjoying all the off-season content. Really, really appreciate it. It's totally free and might take a couple seconds of your time. Again, would really appreciate that. And if you are interested in spending a couple shekels, might I recommend some Just Baseball merch? You can find it. Also, we're unveiling a new Just Baseball
Yeah,
shop. Colby sent me over, and he
yeah,
sent you
it looks
too.
nice.
Oh, it looks so
The
nice. I don't know when that will be ready.
reinvented, new looked Just Baseball shop. That I think you'll just have fun. Even if you don't want to buy anything yet, like just canvas around.
Yeah, just look
It's
at it.
pretty nice.
Absolutely. So, hopefully, everybody has a great weekend. We will be back on Monday for Arm Lane. I'm Peter Apple. With that, thank you, everybody.